everyone. Thank you for joining me for another exciting and informative episode of the Paralegal Voice on the Legal Talk Network. I'm Jill Francisco, an advanced certified paralegal, past president of NALA, the Paralegal Association, and your host of this episode of the Paralegal Voice. I have over 22 years of paralegal experience, and I am so excited to share my knowledge and enthusiasm for the paralegal profession with you. We have a wonderful guest for today's show, but before we welcome her, we'd like to thank our sponsors. Today's sponsor is ServeNow. ServeNow is a nationwide network of trusted, pre-screened process servers. Work with the most professional process servers who have experience with high-volume serves, who embrace technology, and understand the litigation process. Visit servenow.com to learn more. We would also like to thank Legal Inc. Makes it easy for paralegals to digitally automate tasks like business formations, corporate filings, and registered agent services nationwide. Visit legalinc.com/podcast to create your free account today. Thank you to NALA, the Paralegal Association. NALA is a professional association for paralegals providing continuing education, voluntary certification, and professional development programs. NALA has been a sponsor of the Paralegal Voice since our very first show. Also, thank you to courtfiling.net. E-file court documents with ease in California, Illinois, Indiana, and Texas. To learn more, visit courtfiling.net to take advantage of a 30-day free trial. So I am so very excited today to have Sheri Crosby Wheeler as my guest today. Sheri is the VP of Corporate Social Responsibility at Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper is the largest non-bank mortgage servicer in the country. In this position, she is primarily responsible for diversity and inclusion strategies and integration for the entire company. She also works on government relations and state and community relations. Sheri is going to be discussing ways for you to become involved and move diversity, equity, and inclusion forward at your organization. She is going to be giving us some very valuable tips today that you don't want to miss.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here with you all today and just sharing a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I guess I will start with telling you a little bit more about me and my background. So I am some people say, oh, they're a recovering lawyer. I'm not a recovering lawyer. I still am licensed to practice in Texas. I have not let that law license go. And although I am in the corporate realm, I still keep one foot firmly grounded in the legal realm. I still keep up those networks. I still talk to colleagues. I still volunteer. I still speak with groups of legal professionals like I am getting a chance to speak with you all today. So I am super excited to be here and to just talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It's also what I do day in and day out, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So excited.
Thank you so much. And like I said, I think it's interesting to our listeners because, they wouldn't know, I guess, that, you are an attorney. And so, like I said, you're deeply connected and familiar and still keep that connection with the legal field. So although, this is for paralegals, all legal professionals, really, we have a lot of positions and things, but, we will focus, I like to focus on the law office and the environment that, most paralegals and other legal professionals work in. So I personally, I love this topic too, and that's one of the reasons why I'm super excited to have you on today. And, I hear people talking a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and there's a lot of different definitions that are always flying around. And, are they the same? Are they different? I mean, please give our listeners, if you can, just a little bit of insight on those terms and the definitions that we should be familiar with.
Yeah. So here's the thing. A lot of times when people hear the word diversity, I think everyone has a picture that forms in their mind about what they think that means, what they think that is. And I want to, maybe this might be new to some people and or it might be a refresh. But in the diversity, equity, and inclusion realm, all three of those are separate topics, and you might be surprised to know. So diversity, what we hear about, it is representation. It's the factual pieces of who we are, what makes each of us unique. And there's all these different dimensions of diversity, all these different slices, if you will, of a person that makes them unique. Now, a lot of times you'll hear people think about diversity and just think race and gender. And it's more than that. It's more than race and gender. It's sexual orientation. It's physical and mental abilities. It's your background. Were you in the military? Are you married? Do you have children? What's your socioeconomic status? What is your religion? Did you grow up in a rural area or an urban area? Where are you now? Like all the different unique things that make you who you are, that contributes to your diversity. And so I think sometimes when people hear diversity, they'll think, well, some people will think, I'm not a part of that. I'm not diverse. And it's like, yeah, you do have different things that make you diverse. Now, what I will say is there's certain aspects of diversity that we focus on more. And I like to also, if you can put in your mind an iceberg, think about an iceberg. There's a part that's sticking up above the waterline, and then there's all this bigger part that's below the waterline. So above the waterline are the things, the diversity aspects that you can see. So you can see, well, you can't see people on the podcast, but if you look me up, you can see that I'm an African American woman. I am, just turned 21. Look it up. It's true.
Exactly.
Um,
I'll vouch
you
for
can
that.
exactly. You can see those things about me. But then there's all these things below the waterline. Remember all those things I was talking about? Whether or not I'm married, whether or not I have children, whether or not I was in the military, what my work background has been, what my level is at my company. Those are things that are below the waterline. There are also things that make you diverse, but you can't see them. The only way you know about those is if you get to know someone, if you talk to them, if you ask them questions, or if they share that information with you. That's how you know about that. So the things that we see, they're more visible, and that's one of the reasons for that focus on diversity, the visible dimensions of diversity. But another reason for that focus is that we know historically there has been, skews in the workplace, in legal workplaces, in law
Yep.
firms. There still is,
Yep.
unfortunately. And we know that we need to work on some of those dimensions of diversity to make it more fair, to make it more equitable for everyone. That's why you hear about certain ones so much more, because people are working on it. But there are all these different dimensions of diversity that make each and every one of us a diverse individual. And so then when you go to the next word, inclusion, so remember, diversity is a fact. It's all these different factual, unique things about you. When you go to inclusion, that is an action. So you can't just sit back and be like, yes, I'm inclusive, and you're just sitting there. It takes action.
Yep.
Like you have to do something to make someone feel included. Now, here's what can happen, and I'll bring in one more word, but you take an action to make someone feel included, and we all know what that means. You go into a brand new employee comes in, a brand new paralegal comes into work, and they may not be on your team. Do you make them feel included? Do you go up and you speak to them and, hey, how you doing? I'm Sheri. What's your name? Welcome. We're so glad you're here. That is an act of inclusion to make them feel a part of the organization, a part of what is going on. You have to do something. Now, you make a choice about inclusion. You could just sit back and let it ride, or you can go and
Right.
you can actually do something physical as it pertains to,
Action. Hmm.
it's action. And then equity. And this one, you hear it a lot in the diversity realm. Equity is giving people the support that they need to excel in a workplace. And we're talking about a workplace, but you could also talk about society. Different people need different things to experience the world the same way, or to experience a workplace the same way. So for instance, having equity in a law firm, there may be a paralegal that has small children right now. And we know what we're going through. We know that it's harder on those that have small children. So maybe their managing partner that they work with should take that into account, allow their schedule to be a little more flexible during this time. Now, everybody doesn't need that. So everybody doesn't necessarily need that support, because maybe their children are older. Maybe they don't have children. So they wouldn't need the same type of support. So equity, that's what equity is, making sure that people get the support that they need. I was going to bring in belonging, but I'll stop right there. You'll have to reach out to me if you want to know about belonging.
Well, and I just want to say, like how many times, I mean, that clears up so much confusion, I think, for our listeners, and makes it so easy to understand. And I think you separated, what's what. And I mean, how many times have, like you said, a new employee comes in and, and you come up to them and you welcome, like you were saying, use your action, make them feel included. And then, time goes on and,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're late. Maybe they're late every day. And so then you're like, giving them the side eye and
Mm-hmm.
wondering, like, why is this person late? And then, like you said, possibly dig deeper. Maybe they have small children. Maybe there's some kind of situation that they have, even a health disability or something they have to
Mm-hmm.
deal with that, is making late for work. And it's like, you're quick to make those judgments
Right.
sometimes. And like you said, if you don't get to know the person, if you don't reach out to them, you can making judgments about their work product. You're like, you think they're not a hard worker. You think they're
Mm-hmm.
not doing their weight. And then here, it's something that's totally acceptable. We all have different things. We all have different reasons that if you just take the time and, like you said, the action and get into that you get to know somebody. And then here, maybe they're trying above and beyond to just, like you
Right.
said, get equal and to do their part. But
Right.
here, they have a challenge that they're faced with, and you wouldn't know that without reaching out. So I think that's a great thing that you talked about, that you do make a choice. You do make a choice, and you make a choice to reach out, get to know that person, make it feel welcome, get to know them, share your background, learn their background. It's all a two-way street. So I think that really clears up a lot of that confusion. So Sheri, before we get into some more points on our conclusion, we need to move and take a little quick commercial break. So we'll be right back.
This episode of The Paralegal Voice is brought to you by courtfiling.net, your solution for electronic filing in California, Illinois, Indiana, and Texas. Courtfiling.net provides a better e-filing experience so you can spend more time helping clients. Because they know that work sometimes happens after hours, courtfiling.net offers 24/7 phone, email, and chat support. Visit courtfiling.net to receive 30 days of unlimited free electronic filings and see how you too can e-file court documents with ease. Today's episode is brought to you by Legal Inc. Legal Inc. is empowering paralegals to embrace their inner legal rock star by automating the everyday tasks that hold them back. Through their free dashboard solution, paralegals can quickly and easily automate services like business formations, corporate filings, registered agent services, and more. Visit legalinc.com to create a free account and check out legalinc.com/podcast for a chance to win Legal Rockstar swag.
Welcome back to the Paralegal Voice. I'm Jill Francisco, and my guest today is Sheri Crosby Wheeler. And today we were just starting to really get into the meat of our discussion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're going to start talking about what you can do to move it forward in your place of employment or organization. So the one thing I did want to say, just to kind of just wrap up what we were talking about, Sheri, is I work for Dinsmore and Shoal, so obviously a national law firm. And, I think we have a really good DE&I program and overall environment. I think they really are being purposeful and trying to do some of those strategies and value diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm proud to work at a place like that. I mean, it means something to me. It makes, I give them like extra points, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that people look for nowadays in an employer. And I feel like, that's something that I look for. I want that environment. I mean, obviously for myself, but for others. Like, it's important to me that that's there for others. And I think it's also important that I feel that I see that they're doing actions, not just speaking about it or, let's say, posting it on their website. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, that leads me into my next question that I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I know you have so many great ideas. So could you please give our listeners some really specific things that they can do within their employment, their place of employment, their organization, like you were saying, or just out, in society to advance diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to touch real quickly on that last topic about
Yes.
inclusion. Remember how you said it's a choice?
Yep.
If you're not purposefully
Yep.
including and making those steps to include, you may be accidentally excluding.
Yep.
And we all know how that feels. And so think about that when you have the chance and the opportunity to take those steps towards inclusion, because if you decide not to, you could be excluding someone, and you may not want to do that, but that's what's happening. So as far as some concrete actions that paralegals can take in their workplaces, the first thing I want to say, so The way that we approach diversity, equity, and inclusion, it happens on two different levels. Practitioners working in this space. There's the individual level, what individuals can do, and then you have the systemic level. That's what the whole organization can do. And that means policies, practices, procedures, things that are in place. So you can work on it from two different levels. So I'll touch on a couple of things. So we already touched on one thing as far as individually. That was like one, there's so many things you can do to advance it in your workplace. If you are a paralegal that has hiring responsibilities and capabilities, you have tremendous power to impact diversity and inclusion at your organization. If you have that, you are able to make sure that the process is fair. You are able to make sure that as many people, like, cast that net wide and make sure that you can get as many different type of people to the table, because that's going to make your organizations better. So you can have, a diverse slate, if you will. Say, we want to make sure that the slate of candidates that we're looking at is very diverse. It's not all the same, it's not all Black women. I mean, I'm going to use myself. That's not diversity. And some people think, oh, it's Black women, so it's diversity. No, it's not. If every woman on there is a Black woman, that's not diversity, because remember what we talked about. So you want to have that slate. If you have the power to do this, try to have as diverse a slate as you can. How can you do that? And make sure, again, going back to the process being fair. There's technologies out there, but you can also do this without technologies. Have someone else gather the resumes and strip those resumes of things that would clue you in to bias. Take off names, take off dates of graduating from college, which can clue into age, our age bias. Take off maybe even where they worked before, because does that matter as much as what they did? Take that off.
True.
Take off schools. Sometimes people will be like, oh, this person went to Harvard. Okay, that's all well and good, but then you could have a bias towards that. So you just want to know, do they have the requisite requirements, certificates, degrees,
Their
whatever
skills.
it is the job requires? Strip all of that off in that first pass, in that very first pass. Let them give it to you, and this is another strategy you can use, slate of interviewers, like not just one interviewer, have multiple perspectives that are looking at the process, who are putting their input in there. So, I know some companies do this already, some law firms do this already, but if you don't, you should. And in that first pass, look at just the skills. Look at the skills of this person. What have they done? Does it meet the objective criteria of what you need for the role? And then obviously at some point when you meet them or you see them on Zoom, you will learn some things about them. You'll see some visible dimensions of diversity. But through that first cut, you've had an opportunity to cast the net so wide and to mitigate any bias that you might have. So that's something that you can do, especially if you have hiring responsibilities. Another thing that you can do that's concrete, maybe if you don't have hiring responsibilities, maybe if you're in an organization that's not like Jill's organization that's already on the road, that they're moving forward, your organization may be a little earlier on in their journey. So what you can do is reach out and pay attention to who else in the organization may be a champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and get together with that person and talk about, okay, here's what, I think that we can do better here. Not saying just go straight to the top, to the manager partner right off the bat. Unless you have that relationship, you might. And so if you do, that's great. But
sometimes you got to get your ducks in a row.
Right. If not, then get some people together with you who are like-minded and say, here's what we would like to start here. And it doesn't have to be anything big, some huge splash. Just get started on whatever it is, whether it be affinity groups. Some companies call them affinity groups. We call them employee resource teams, just to get started with one. But it takes that one voice. And if you don't feel comfortable just all on your own going to the powers that be, grab a couple of other people that are like-minded, and you can listen, you can find out, who they are, find them, link arms together, and then work together to start building things. So that's another concrete thing I would say. Another thing I would say is start learning as much as you can. Because your knowledge, then when you have the opportunity to share your knowledge, you are influencing people around you. You are, believe it or not, even if it doesn't seem like it's moving as quickly as you would like, when you learn knowledge, like everybody who's listening to this podcast today, y'all are learning. And then
Yep.
you can take that back, you can start sharing it, just dropping little nuggets here and there. That's another thing you can do. So, it doesn't necessarily, change will not happen quickly. It takes time. But believe you me, if you are sharing your knowledge, you are affecting change. And that's powerful. So I would encourage everyone on this podcast to think about that and think about the power that you have to affect change. I'll stop right there because I don't want to go too long. I can just keep going.
Well, you're right. You could keep going because there are so many things. And I think one of the messages that I'd like, our listeners to take away, and I know it's what you're saying, is you don't have to have anything, like you said, you don't have to do all the job today. You can start out, and just be thinking to yourself, and then, kind of gathering some ideas to yourself. And then you're thinking, okay, well, I think that this person, like you said, you reach out, you learn about your coworkers. You're like, I think this person might be interested in what I'm interested in. So let's collaborate. And then you kind of and then that expands your more ideas. And it just kind of, I think, snowballs into so many things. And here you've thought to yourself, I can't do anything. I can't make a difference. Because I think I remember when I listened to your presentation that you did for NALA, your awesome webcast, I remember talking to Carla and talking to you about, well, I feel like I don't have that power to hire. So what can I do? And it's like, you can still encourage. And like, I'm trying to encourage our firm right now to have a board of paralegals be involved in hiring new paralegals, because then I can talk about like not only skills that I think are essential to paralegals and to be successful, but also encourage diversity, like encourage them to not have us all the same. Like you said, not just by race, not just, but everything, background and so many other things. Like because honestly, I think that, and I hope law firms are going this way, but I think they realize that's not how the client gets the best service. You have all the same people in the same room with the same thinking and the same ideas. That's not going to be the best, work and services that they're going to get, because all the clients aren't the same. Everybody, it might be a client that has, a bunch of offices all over, and they don't just want one, little perspective or one little, cornered on when you have the same like-minded individuals doing stuff.
I need to be interviewing you for this podcast because you are dropping knowledge.
Oh,
but you are right. You are absolutely right.
Thank you. Well, it's just like I said, it is very important to me, and it's how I see it. And I just think that, you can do small things and they add up to be big things before you know it. I mean, I'm always surprised when I think, gosh, I didn't even think this was going to work. And then bam, there you are. Okay, so we got that, and I think we're getting some valuable information. We got to take another little break to do a commercial, so we'll be right back.
Looking for a process server you can trust? ServeNow.com is a nationwide network of local pre-screened process servers. ServeNow works with the most professional process servers in the industry, connecting your firm with process servers who embrace technology, have experience with high-volume serves, and understand the litigation process and rules of properly effectuating service. Find a pre-screened process server today. Visit www.servenow.com. NALA members receive exclusive content such as the Paralegal Utilization and Compensation Survey Report, access to a members-only collaboration site, discounts on office products and car rental, access and preferred placement on a web platform for paralegal contract jobs, and access to the member-only Career Center. NALA members also receive discounted education and products. Join NALA today and become a part of our community. Learn more at nala.org.
Welcome back to the Paralegal Voice. I'm Jill Francisco, and my guest today is Sheri Crosby Wheeler. And we were just talking about and kind of wrapping up our We were having a great discussion on what you can do in your organization, your place of employment. Just I feel like I want to include, like Sheri does in society, to just, move these initiatives of diversity, equity, inclusion forward. So the next thing that I want to talk about is very, like Sheri, you were saying, things are, this is near and dear. It's very near and dear to me. This is something I've strived to do even before I feel like there was a term for it, or at least before I knew there was a term for it, is allyship. And, being an ally, I love it when somebody tells me that they appreciate me doing that. Like, seriously, it's one of the biggest compliments to me, because I feel like, sometimes I feel like, am I doing it right? I mean, you love when you think about that. Like, am I doing this right? Am I making a difference? Am I doing what I intend to do? And so when somebody tells me that, I feel like, okay, I am. It's like, yes, I'm doing it. So, basically, what does allyship really mean, and how does it look in the workplace? How can we relate that into our workplace?
So that's so interesting that you say that, Jill, about when people come to you and say, hey, we appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing, because that's one of the hallmarks of allyship. It's not something necessarily that we, as allies to different communities, that we get to say. I mean, we do say it, but when it really resonates and hits home, we'll say, I'm an ally. But when somebody comes to you and they point out to you that they see you as an ally to their community because of what you have done, then now you're cooking with grease, like for real, because
yes.
they're seeing your works. And allyship is about more than just a statement or a title. It's about action. Going back to that action, just like inclusion is about action, so is allyship. Not only is it action, it's continuous action. It's on and on. So you have sometimes people are like, I'm an ally, and they'll pop up and then you won't see them anymore. Like, what happened to that ally? But somebody who continuously is stepping in and standing with a community of people, that's an ally. Some people are lifelong allies. Some people are allies for a sustained period of time, years. They're just really going in there, but they have that sustained, continuous action when they're being an ally. And when they know it is when the community that you're trying to help, when they tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, good job. That's when you're really, really doing it. And so, I mean, allyship, another thing to remember about it is that yes, it can take effort, it can take work, but guess what? You just stand alongside those that you're trying to help and you say, hey, how can I help you? How can I be in support? How can I be with you? The ally is not out in the front. The ally is not all the way to the back. The ally is standing shoulder to shoulder.
Yes.
And sometimes an ally can speak up in ways and in spaces and in places to different groups of people. They can speak up in a way that the person they're trying to help can't. They don't have as much risk when they speak up. When they say, hey, wait, that's not right. Or no, let's think about this. Versus if the person that's in the group that you're allied with says it, it may not be received the same. So there is tremendous power, and I say a privilege in allyship when you do it, when you step in and you say, you know what, I want to help out. And what can I do? Tell me what I can do. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to learn. That's another thing allies do. I'm going to learn for myself. I have some ideas. Now, what can I do? Are any of these ideas good? Tell me how I can help you. And if you're the type of person, which I think, Jill, I don't know you well, but I think I'm seeing from you that you're the type of person that likes to help people.
Yes.
So it's easy for us to slip into that allyship role because we're like, what can we do? How can we help? We want to help. And so if you're a type of person like that, which a lot of people are, being an ally, you can get into that role. And so in the workplace, here's what it looks like in the workplace. You're sitting in a meeting. Maybe y'all are, if you're a paralegal that's a litigation paralegal, y'all are having this case meeting. You have a colleague, another paralegal that works on the case. Somebody, the lawyers are talking, they cut that paralegal off whenever they're speaking. You can be an ally to that person. You can, and maybe they are in a marginalized group. Maybe it's a male attorney that cuts off a woman attorney. You can say, hey, I think that Jill still had something to say, or she was still speaking. That's allyship too. Again, going back to, it doesn't have to be big and
Yep.
grandiose and, I gave $1 million. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It can
No.
be stepping into spaces and doing something as simple as that. That's allyship. Speaking up and giving credit where credit is due. Whenever you see that maybe someone is taking someone else's credit, or you see that that person may be more reserved and they won't speak up for themselves. When you step in and say, you know what, actually, it was John that wrote this
Yeah.
brief. It wasn't me. I wrote this brief that helped us win or whatever. I drafted the first draft of it. That's allyship.
Yep.
Even something as simple as that. And it's just something I just want to remind everybody. It's not something to be taken lightly. If you're going to be an ally to a group of
You need to
people,
be committed.
you need to be committed. And nobody's
Yep.
saying you have to, but if you're going to do it, then do it
Yep.
right. Be committed, be all
Yes.
in. And I tell you, it's kind of like giving, just
For
general. When
sure.
you give, the person that's giving to me, I receive just as much when I'm giving. And so being an ally, you're helping, but I think you get just as much from helping and being that ally as you do from, stepping into that space and helping another group.
I totally agree with that. And I love how, like, I mean, clearly we connected. I know how awesome you are and wanted to share all your knowledge, but I love how we're connecting on these points. Not planned. We're just like you said, we're just feeling it, because I want to tell you and the listeners a little story. But, when I really wanted to start the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative for NALA and get that moving, of course, I went to someone, because that's what you do. You think, okay, this is what I want to do, but I'm not going to be able to do it myself. And as you know, that's not how it works on a board of directors anyway,
Mm-hmm.
no matter if you are the boss. But I'll never forget, in a downtime, I went to this person and I talked about what I wanted to do, and I talked about why. And I even questioned, like, why hasn't this been done before? Like, why didn't, past leaders do it? Because there seemed to me there was opportunity that they could have. And it resonated with what you just said, that this person said to me, because was of a class, was of a different race, and said, Jill, and she knew me. I mean, she knew me well, like you just said, but she said, Jill, I cannot tell you how this will be coming from you
Mm-hmm.
as compared to if it was coming from me. And or the others that I thought should have started it. She talked about, you people judge you and think you have a hidden agenda because you're in a class, or you're
Mm-hmm.
of a certain type, or so then they think, well, they're just doing it because that's what they are and they want to do it. And so then coming from me, it's like, oh, well, and she said the power that you will have and the influence that you will have, I love that. But I'll be honest with you, I wish you could see I'm getting goosebumps. I'll be honest with you, it hurt me. It hurt my
Mm-hmm.
feelings,
Yeah.
because she was telling me this.
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly I know that things are like that in this world, but it hurts when, I'm like, oh no, because you're awesome. And, you could get it done and you could do it. And it's like, she just knew that's reality, that she just was like, it was not going to work. Coming from you, though, you can get it done. And so, when you said that, when people tell me that and when people say stuff like that, that is why I'm doing this today. That's why I want you on my podcast. It's why I've done things before, is because it's very important, and it's not personal. It changes things, and it makes you feel,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, you get the feeling of giving and of, being helpful and being kind. You get some of those, being charitable. All those things to me resonate when you're talking about doing this. And sometimes I think, like, at first I didn't really even make that connection. You don't really, until you really dig deep and you get those, like you said, those responses from people. You're like, oh, wow. And it meant so much. Like, I thought I was just like doing a good thing because it was the right thing to do. I'll be honest with you. I don't know why people didn't think it was the right thing to do, but I thought it
Right.
was the right thing to do. You know what
Whole
I'm saying? So
other
I was like, I got it.
podcast.
Right.
Whole other
I got it.
podcast.
That's right. I got to get this going. And I was just doing what I thought was right. And here it meant so much more and on another level
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
somebody that, like you said, was in that certain group, was in that certain class, was, having the struggles and, couldn't do it themselves. When you step up and you step to those people and you understand, it's amazing. That's all I
Yeah.
can say.
Yeah. It just involves so much more risk on their part. And
Yes.
so it's, for you to step in, and not that it wasn't a risk for you, but maybe a
Right.
little bit less.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I'm with you, and so I really like that we connect on that because it shows what you're saying is, I mean, it's real life examples. I mean, it's
Mhm.
I'm definitely with you. So lastly, I'm sad that we're going to have to wrap it up, but I want the listeners, because thank goodness that we got year 2021. I mean, good lordy. Woo! We're in the downhill thing here, that we got another year. 2021 is coming on the horizon for a brand new, better, can I say it again? Better,
Hopefully.
year. What do you think will be some of the important issues on diversity and inclusion in 2021?
I think one of the main things, remember how I alluded to systemic and individual interventions? I think a
Yep.
lot of law firms and companies are focusing on that systemic piece of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like they're understanding that you're working on both pieces, but a lot of times we've been working on the individual.
Yep.
And now you really have to if you want to see change, real change, you're going to have to get into the systemic. And I know that word right now is a little laden. Some people are like, systemic, oh, they don't believe. But again, systemic is policies, practices, procedures, unwritten policies, written policies, taking a look at those. And there's organizations that if you're really serious about this, and there are a lot of organizations that are, they're going to be taking a look at how they operate and what they're doing so that they can make their law firms more equitable, make their law firms more representative of the clients. You said something, I mean, you are right. How can you serve your clients well
Right.
if you don't have as much thought, all the different thoughts coming in there? Somebody might have a super outstanding thought and they're not even at the table. And so, that is important to clients, for law firm clients. And I think law firms, they've been thinking about it, and I think it's still going to be on their mind in 2021, and you're going to see more focus on that systemic work. I think you'll still see the focus on representation and trying to increase it. In particular, you'll have, with respect to, I know in the paralegal ranks, going back to when we did our presentation for NALA,
Yep.
that the paralegal ranks are not as diverse when you're looking at gender as they could be. So that's like, well, I mean, is that something?
We do need some men.
Right. Is that something to work on? Some of the best paralegals I worked with, there were some gentlemen, there were only a handful of them. And I was like, where are you? They were good though, but there were only a handful of them.
Yeah.
So that's something that could be worked on. And that's a representation piece in the paralegal profession. And in law firms, all up and down, they have gender work to do. They have race work to do. They have different abilities, work in that space to do. There's a lot. So there's going to be that continued focus on representation. I think another thing that's going to start happening is you're going to see, because I know there's some platforms out there right now. So, you have like Glassdoor that you can go on and you can say, this is what's going on with my company. And there's this rise of new platforms that will start to grade employers on their diversity, equity, and inclusion work.
Oh, wow.
And we haven't really seen that before. And now they're coming in right at this time when there's a lot of focus. And so some employers are going to have a light shined on shown on what they're doing. And they're going to be like, well, wait a minute. I mean, because there's all these
I wasn't ready.
There's all these technology platforms that are coming on board right now. And I think that's the next, that's some of the next wave that I think law firms and corporations should get ready for. If you're not already thinking about it, like, okay, we're going to be graded on some of this externally, like people are really looking. We can't just keep it to ourselves anymore. We're going to have to work on it, and it's going to have to be something that's real substantial, not just we put it on our website and we're not doing anything else. So
no, I agree with you that. And I think too, it may even play into, I think nowadays, competitive, like when you're looking to go somewhere, I mean, especially, you're out of law school and you're like, thinking about where you want to go. It's like looking at, I think that's what people are going to start looking at, because, you can only, insurance, time off, paid holidays, all that stuff only goes so far.
Right.
There's more, I think companies are offering more and more things. And I think this is a place. And one thing I love that Dinsmore does, I mean, like we have a chair, of course, of the, like you were calling the affinity committee and stuff. And they'll have quotes, or he'll, circulate things. And the one thing that I love, it's like, he talks about how it's really changed the culture of the firm. And it's not just, you're really you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk, and it really is making a difference, because they can see the people that are coming and wanting to work there.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I still talk to law school students. I mentor them, and I told them, the ones that are interviewing, I'm like, ask them. Ask them what they're doing in this space. Look at the law firm. See how the people who are interviewing you answer the questions. I mean, because especially if they have like multiple places they could go, if they're really good students, then this might be something that makes the difference in the talent that you bring in. So I've been telling them, hey, ask them the questions. You're interviewing the law firm too.
That's right. It works both ways. And like I said, that you can tell by the people that are coming that want to work there. And then also they feel welcome. I mean, that's why they're wanting to work there, is because that's already been projected. The firm is already like changing the culture, changing and projecting that culture. And also, on the other side, what they're doing, but what they're not going to be tolerating, what's not going to be tolerated, and what they're not going to be, promoting. It's really interesting, I think, where we're headed. And I like all the things that you said that's coming up, because, on the horizon for 2021, I love that. I had not heard that about the grading. You know how it is every time somebody steps up and there's going to be grading, as soon as you get that rating on Google, you're
yeah. I'm telling you, it's happening.
It makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. Yeah. Well, that's all the time that we have for this episode. Sheri, thank you so very much.
Thank you
for being my guest today. I mean, you discussed so much valuable information, and I love how you gave some little teasers that, people can reach out if they would like some more information. Because let me tell you, folks, I know that Sheri is full of very useful information on this subject and many others, I'm sure. But if the listeners would like to get some more information, follow up, get in touch with you, what is the best way that they can contact you?
I'm an avid, super user of LinkedIn. So that's how you can reach me. I check it every day. And I would also say too, if you're in a law firm that has, like Jill's law firm already has diversity things happening, get involved. And if you're at one that doesn't, start to think about how you can get it going. If you're at a law firm that has a chief diversity officer or a partner that works on diversity and inclusion, or a head paralegal, or whatever the case may be, start to talk to them and get involved. Raise your hand and get involved. I promise you, your effort will be worth it, because you are making the workplace a better place. You're making your law firm a better place. You're making the world a better place. And I'm not saying, it's not, that's not something cheesy. That's true. You are. So get involved.
Thank you so much. That's great advice. And like I said, thank you so very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And, I make my little list of people that, so I'll be bothering you again.
Anytime.
I am sure. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, Jill.
And thank you so much for all our listeners who tuned in today. If you have any questions or comments for me, please contact me at jfrancisco@logical.com. I hope you will join me for our next episode. I'm Jill Francisco for the Paralegal Voice, signing off.